Welcome to Beyond the Dragon, where we explore indie tabletop role-playing games and their design to inspire you to play them or take what you like for your own creations. Hi there, my name's Oscar.
And my name is Sun.
We're both tabletop game designers and professional game masters who love TTRPGs, and today we will be discussing Mausritter. So, a quick little thing to get out before we jump into today's episode. There's going to be a change in the structure of the episodes from this point on. Instead of having it broken down into main engine, supporting features, either combat or the main game function, then our standouts, our criticisms, and finally things you can take from the game and put into other things, we've decided to go main engine that explains the way that the game works, the core of the game mechanically, which is kind of a bundle of the combat, main game, and supporting features thing. Then we will do our criticisms, then our standouts, and finally we will still end off with our free talk about taking from the game and designing elsewhere. So with that all said and done, let's discuss Mausritter. Mausritter was published by Isaac Williams of Losing Games on November 21st, 2019. Mausritter is designed to be a fast-paced mouse adventure game of whiskers and needles, based on Into the Odd. This is the first Mark of the Odd game that we will be reviewing. The game is 48 pages and priced at whatever you feel like paying. From a main engine standpoint, Mausritter is very similar to Into the Odd, with very few major changes. Roll under d20 game, still 3 stats, and auto hit on attacks. One change is that the inventory system, it is now a card-based system with 2 hand slots, 2 body slots, and 6 backpack slots to carry your goods. It now also features a gold for XP system, with pips instead of gold. The stats are the same, and you will roll 3d6 for each, and keep the 2 highest of your d6, giving you stats between 2 and 12. And then you will roll a d6 for your pips, your money, a d6 for your HP or hit protection, and then reference a table for your previous life and starting gear. You also get torches, rations, your background equipment, your background equipment would be what you got from your the table, and a weapon of your choice. The last couple of mechanical things are that this game has disadvantage and advantage and initiative. So the advantage-disadvantage system is 5e familiar, rolling 2d20 and taking the better result with advantage or the worse result with disadvantage. And initiative is a dex save. Winners go first and only roll once for the entire combat. So Sun, tell me what you think of Mausritter.
So, those that are aware of my experience with Mausritter know that it is one of my favorite games. I really enjoy the nice blending of knaves focused on inventory with Into the Odd's quick and deadly chassis. I think this book is very readable, with a very nice layout, with a landscape spread, and designed with that focus in mind. So, a single chapter's on a spread. You can just refer to things nice and easy. And, the whimsical artwork throughout is always nice. But don't let that fool you, because this game, just like Into the Odd, is deadly. And if anything, even more deadly. I really enjoy Mausritter. And there's a reason why, if I can, I try to use its system as much as possible with any games I run.
Yeah.
What about you?
Sure do use Mausritter a lot. On my end, I like Mausritter. It would probably... Mausritter sits in an odd spot for me in terms of Mark of the Odd games. It sits tied with a descendant of itself for preferred Mark of the Odd system. And the reasons for that are more relevant to the other game than Mausritter. But Mausritter is, I think, the inventory system is one of the strongest reworks outright. I'm a really big fan of mouse fiction in general. So between those two functions, I find Mausritter to be just a fantastic game to play and very enjoyable.
Indeed.
So,
Why don't we go straight into the next chapter?
yes, so
Core thematics.
indeed, I feel like you should start us off with this as the Mausritter expert.
Okay. Well, won't beat around the bush and go straight to the inventory, the 10 item inventory grid, and the item cards. So, yes, if you're aware of Knave item slots, it takes that concept and just, rearranges the slots into a 2x5 grid. And the columns, each column is just your main paw and your offhand paw, your 2 body slots, and then the last 6 slots is what's in your pack. This, like Knave, emphasizes the importance of items and what you carry. When you have to collect treasure, you need to weigh your options on whether you can fit it into your grid, or if you can't fit it into your little inventory grid, you can still carry it. You can always still carry it, but then you'll be encumbered, and that will lead to penalties. Or if you don't want to do that, you need to sacrifice something or ignore it. And instead of thinking of the weight of an item, it's now just the size of a card, just like how in Knave or any other slot-based inventory, when you want to make something heavier than normal, it's not 1 slot, it's 2 slots or 3 slots. Well, in Mausritter's case, if you're thinking within a grid, it's a single square or a 1x1, or is it a 2x1 or a 2x2? They're the default sizes. Obviously, you could go larger, and maybe it's like a 3x2, but they're the standard sizes: a 1 square item, 2 square item, or a 4 square item. And those 4 square items will generally be the human sized items. So it links back into the mouse fiction part of the game.
Oh yeah, you said human size, and I'm like, oh yeah, like if you're taking a statue the size of a person, then I'm like, oh no, you mean like human. That's one of the best parts of Mausritter is it's like, oh yeah, human size stuff. Steal a toaster.
Well, that might not fit into your inventory itself.
That's what
but
hirelings are for.
That is true. I was thinking more like a whistle. That's decently big. It's probably going to at least be a 2 slot based item.
I could see someone tying a whistle to the back of a mouse, and that not being a problem depending on the size of the mouse.
Yeah, no, and because this game was made with in-person play in mind, and I have the actual physical box set, the item cards are very cute, and I think lends itself back into that kind of cute fiction, even though your mice are dying. Yeah. What about you?
On my end, I think actually leaning into what you were talking about, it comes to conditions. With what you said about the way that inventory works here, conditions feed into inventory in an interesting way. So with your 6 items for you to gather to sell for XP or be useful later, if you get a condition, that also will take up a slot in your bag. And until you reach until you fulfill whatever the necessary task is to clear said condition, you will have that condition in your pack, quickly over encumbering you. And if you have, I think it's like double if your pack is full of conditions, you're over encumbered and fall unconscious.
I believe so. Basically, once all your item slots are filled, then you are encumbered and you cannot run, and all saves are at disadvantage.
Yes, and so and you can stack multiple of the same condition. So as you continue to go on, yeah, your attacks become impaired, making them a D4. Your saves are disadvantaged. You can't run. You really need to think if you start taking conditions. What do I need to keep on me to, survive? But also, what do I need to keep on me to maximize my profit here?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I really like the conditions being like actual physical part of you. It makes them harder to ignore, definitely. Um, I would then go as I'm just talking about items. I really like the emphasis of these items, at least a lot of them being the artwork included, showing off that these are kind of recycled human items. You know, your shield is a button. You know, your helmets are thimbles. You know, there are candy cane spears that you've just sharpened off. You know, swords are just needles with a little bit of, you know, twine around the end so you can hold it and the like. I really like that. It's trying to tie back into the mouse fiction of it all. And then including then just the other items that are just not repurposed, but just human items. A whistle, batteries, and the like. Batteries that you'd probably use for your generator back at your mouse settlement. Things like that.
Yeah, that's true. The style of the items really does bring back the concept of like you are a mouse. I joked about
Mm,
steal a toaster, but if you steal a toaster, you can live in that. That's a house. You just sold like a house for probably like 2 or 3 mice.
exactly.
Squatters' rights.
Mm, what about you?
Um, Next up on my list is actually the lethality of the system. I've seen a lot of people talk about the purpose or value of lethality in the games. Some people don't like the concept of characters dying at narratively unsatisfying moments. I can see why people would say that. I actually find characters dying unsatisfyingly with several plot threads cut without being resolved to be a very good storytelling feature, because anticlimaxes are as important as climaxes. But
Mm,
narrative dissatisfaction can be a useful storytelling tool in its own sense. Some stories end tragically, or in a way that leaves you unfulfilled, but that's the tale. That's the story. And
mm,
in Mouseritter's case, it's important to say that the lethality works in the game's favor, specifically because mouse fiction in general, or most rodent fiction overall, tends to have like a touch of brutality mixed in with the cuteness. I mean, none of the mouse fiction I've ever seen is, Watership Down levels of fucking traumatizing.
no.
But it can definitely you can play Mouse Ritter as a cutesy mouse game and tone down the lethality if you really needed to. But the fact that everything is so dangerous really brings home the you are a small thing in a big world, which is the core essence of mouse fiction, and as well as the using the smallness as a trait to overcome challenges.
Indeed. And then just jumping on your point, utilizing another part of Into the Odds system, the detachments uh, rule, in which where it's called warband scale here in Mausritter. In Into the Odd, detachments were basically like large groups. That was kind of like the small scale warfare type of thing. Here, those large groups, well, they're cats, they're skunks, they're the big animals. And to realistically, to feasibly take them on, you're going to need, a lot more mice to then be at warband scale to fairly fight a cat.
Yep.
Otherwise,
I
yes, you're all dead.
Yeah, and I mean it kind of makes sense. Like, sure, could one mouse fight a cat if they could wield tools? Probably not. Could 20 dogpile a cat and win? Yeah, probably.
Mm, mm. And for me, then it would be Mouse Ritter's leveling and experience system. So, mouse fiction, you're collecting things, the borrowers, which I believe is one of the if not inspirations and acknowledgement in the book, um, where you're just constantly finding things and bringing them back to your settlement. That's how you gain experience. Whenever you find things out in the dangerous wilds and you recover that treasure, the um, value of those trinkets and treasures um, is transferred into experience points. So this is the gold for XP that some people will be accustomed to from older D&D based games and the like. I think this works well for the mouse fiction, and it's an easy encouragement reward loop. Why are we going out? Well, we need stuff for our settlement, but also it's our way of leveling up. And if you want to be a little bit nicer, you can gain more experience by like donating that stuff to the settlement. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, that is
What
definitely
do you
one of
think?
Mausritter's strengths.
Hmm.
I will say on my end, one thing actually, bringing it back to the warband scale, the scales, recruits in general, I think, are one of Mausritter's stronger features.
Okay.
So hirelings of all kinds can be either paid money or recruited with a will save, but then you have to continue to pay them to keep them equipped so that you can level them up by sharing your treasure, bringing it back to why are you getting treasure. Well, we also need our hirelings to be stronger. We need to give them, I think it's every pip above their base pay is 1 XP. So it really is just an NPC character rather than just a static follower that will come and then die when they aren't useful anymore.
Yeah. And I like the hireling table they provide. Like it, without really basically any detailing, just the titles give you an understanding of, oh, okay, we probably need these types of hirelings when we go delving. A torchbearer, a laborer, a tunnel digger, an armorer, blacksmith, a local guide, a mouse at arms, a scholar, a knight, and the one that makes me think the most, an interpreter.
Ah, yes, the interpreter. Languages.
Yes, which I'll get into later.
Yeah. But and then like the other thing is like with the detachments, you start talking about 1,000 pips a week to upkeep uh basically just 20 hirelings at once. Or actually no, sorry, 40 hirelings. It's 20 mice and then 20 fighting mice and then 20 support mice.
Hmm.
They can just ignore non-warband attacks, and then warband scale fights are just normal fights, which is a really good system. When you move scale, it's the same with a elected leader, but basically you have backup. Uh,
Yeah.
and then yeah, so you really are just dragging an army along with you, and you can take land for yourself to maintain, build your own settlement with your army to try and make a better place for mice.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
the bringing that back, like it really shows you just how like gold for XP, bringing in hirelings for to bring back more gold, and bringing in a warband to fight off bigger things and defend land and claim it for yourself really does show, like bringing it back to the money for XP thing, just how expensive and XP sacrificing of a venture it is to start discussing building your own home.
yeah. Yeah. Like you are treasure seekers in this game because if you're wanting to expand and go further, i.e., getting hirelings or forming warbands, you're gonna need more treasure.
Yep.
So yeah, constant feedback loop there. And I like how simple the warbands hireling section is because uh, it pretty simply shows you what at least the higher tier of play would be, without needing to go into too much details there.
Yeah. No, it really does.
But I think that's a good transition into going into criticisms,
We can. I
unless you
have
had
more
something.
notes.
Oh, please go ahead.
And I mean, is languages a standout for you rather than a supporting feature?
Well, I was trying to keep it within the rough number we each had.
Oh, I have like three more things. If you want to move on, we can. I don't have many
Ah,
criticisms.
that's okay. I can just bring it over then. Um, I'll just since we are talking about it, the interpreter hireling speaks about okay languages. What do you mean by languages? So how language works in Mausritter? General rule of thumb: the more closely related two creatures are, the more likely they are to understand each other. Magical or highly intelligent creatures may break these rules, but other mice can easily communicate. Other rodents can speak and communicate, with maybe some difficulty or difference of custom. Other mammals need to make a will save to see if communication is possible. Otherwise, can't directly communicate. So a mouse trying to talk to a snake, a bee, a centipede, a frog, you're going to need an interpreter that knows this area and can speak to frogs. You're going to need a magic tablet where you can understand languages, or you're going to have to like do some sign language or like show friendly gestures of some kind. I really like this very simple but clear rule on hey, it's going to be hard talking with some people, with some other creatures out there.
Yeah, no, it is, and again, it really hammers down like mice can't just talk to frogs. Gotta
Mm.
pay someone who does that for you. Or oh, there is another alternative, magic, which is on
Indeed.
my supporting features. So Mausritter has a usage dot durability system. To quickly cover that, uh, whenever you use an item, you would roll. I believe it's a d6,
Yep.
and then on a 6, you don't lose it. On a or no, on a what is it? Unfortunately, this
Uh,
is not. Oh, yes, here it is. Roll a die. Oh no, that's for magic specifically. Do you know
so
offhand?
usage dots, especially if you're using them within combat, you would roll any item that you used within combat, and on a 4 to 6 mark usage. That's for weapon, armor, ammunition. For torches, actually, yeah, on just a basic rule, 4 to 6, you've used a dot up.
Oh, good. That's the same then. So
Mm.
magic also uses this exact usage dot system. There are 3 dots per magic item, which magic items are very much like Knave's books. They are little relics that have magical powers that you hold. Usage dots with the magic stand out to me very much as a very cool system of waning power of spells as you risk more to do more. So you have as much power in a spell as you have usage dots. Roll a die for every point of power that you use, marking a usage dot on a 4 to 6. For every 6 you roll, take a d6 of will damage and make a will save. If you fail or hit 0 will, you go mad, which is death with a different with will instead of strength because you tick down strength when you lose your HP in Mausritter. Spells have effects based on the number of dice rolled or the sum of the dice rolled, and they also have various rituals to recharge them when they are depleted. In terms of replacing Arcanum, I find that spells here are quite a bit cooler, with especially that recharge feature.
Yes, no, like everything about the spells. I really like it, but especially the recharge feature.
It's
It
much more
makes it,
occult.
yeah, it makes it feel mystic. It makes it feel weird. It's great. Like, no, for example, one that people will immediately be accustomed to. So, fireball, with D&D and all that, I just throw out a fireball. Yeah, boom. But here you are using this tome and depending, you deal a sum plus the number of dice you've used damage to, the explosion. But to recharge it, you must then burn this tome in the heart of a raging fire for 3 days and nights. So there's some effort you need to do with recharging this thing, and that's such a great visual, and in of itself could be like a tiny little mini adventure, or it could be just a fancy thing that is done during the downtime when you're back in a settlement. But that in of itself is its own scene almost.
It is. I wonder if I realize I'm stuck on the toaster joke, but I wonder if a toaster coil counts as a raging fire. Batch recharge your fireball tablets here. One use of the toaster.
Yes, yes. Maybe in a more metropolis settlement, they figured out toasters work instead of a pyre.
But yeah, do you have anything else? Because I have one more thing, really big thing I'd like to talk about, and then I'm good.
I will mention the usage dots just a little bit since we are talking about them. But yeah, usage dots is how durability is done here in Mausritter. I think it's one of the more easier to be accustomed to durability systems out there. You're not marking it all the time. Whenever you're in combat, at the end of combat, you just roll a d6 for each item that would have been used in it. And then, 4 to 6, marker usage. By default, all items have 3 dots. And so you know how close you are to risking an item breaking. You can repair them for 10% of the original cost per dot. But, usage dots are used for also torches and lanterns. Mark a usage dot every 6 turns, which is a turn is 10 minutes. Rations, just a mark a dot. That's fine after a meal. And also it states like if you use an item in maybe a way that could break it or deplete it, and this goes into the utilizing what you have on you to try and achieve something, maybe the referee will decide you can do it, but you need a marker usage dot here.
Yes.
So really utilizing that feature as much as possible.
Yeah, and it means no item is limited by the stated mechanics.
Yeah.
For me,
What about you?
Yeah. So the next really big thing, there's kind of two. One of the main big things about running Mausritter is that exploration and hex or dungeon crawling are really heavily focused. Dungeon turns are a big thing here. Everyone has 10 minutes to do a thing in a dungeon before the next turn starts. These things are broken down into major actions that can fill a lot of different purposes. You can search something. You can go ahead and travel to another room. You can fight, meaning that you don't actually have to go down to like the roll dexterity to see who goes first. You could just do it in the dungeon turn for a quick bit of combat and be like, all right, roll me dex, who goes first? All right, so, they hit for this much. How are you doing versus you hit them. All right, they're gone. You could really just do non-focused combat and focus more on the exploration. And then the dungeon building doesn't have to be... It has a great but not needlessly complex builder. Break up your dungeon into areas, give the areas encounters based on the theme of the area, and then give an encounter every 3 turns. Hexes are kind of similar. Build out and start with a small hex map. I believe a 5 hex diameter. And then have players explore and learn more about the world, add factions, goals, and challenges as time goes on. And, it doesn't need to be super detailed, it just needs to be something for your mice to focus on, and then get more complex as they naturally grow and explore.
Yes. For those that are aware, the hex region is like a hex flower. So, a 5x5 grid. And yeah, it gives you guidance. You only need that one hex flower to start off. But even for your first session, don't worry about that. Start at the first adventure site. And then once you complete that, then you can bring out the hex map, how they gain back to their settlement type of thing. And yes, with the adventure sites, what are classified as dungeons, this is shown more off in the Mausritter official website, but dungeons don't need to be detailed to the the inch square grid. Flowcharts, the generators on the website are just flowcharts, just connected to each other, stating what is in each room. And as a GM, a referee, that's all you really need, just to get the themes and what could be in there type of thing. And
Love a
then if
map.
combat were to happen, into the odds combat really doesn't need grid-based combat.
Or Into the Odd, who cares how long a round takes?
Well, in this case, if this is a rule I do see not being used much by the Mouse Reader community, but you should know a round is the timescale used during combat. Each round is less than a minute. So, it also states in the turns, a fight will almost always last one turn. So, there's some expansion on how long combats could potentially go for. It's not always a blow by blow. Maybe you stretch out what you're actually doing during that fight.
Yep. Yeah, no, I actually kind of prefer the dungeon turn combat style, but understandably, with the way of rounds, sometimes a fight deserves that attention.
Hmm. Do you have anything else?
Yep, my last thing is the system called Grit. As leveling in Mark of the Odd games goes, Mausritter might actually be a bit more forgiving than some. Grit is a stat that allows you to ignore conditions by placing them into slots equal to the number of grit you have. It is probably the most directly useful and impressive way to show growth as a character, is just like you can just ignore more heavy things as you last longer.
Yep.
And
I think it's this one of the smallest changes, uh, on top of the slight reframing of the inventory system, but adds a lot. It's literally free encumbrance slots when you want to use them, and it's literally is the more experienced you are, the more you can shrug off uh, debilitating effects. Perfect.
but yeah, that is in fact for me the end of my uh features that I wanted to talk about in terms of the main theme of Mouse Ritter.
Okay. Then criticisms. Um, I will mention that in the GM section, it gives, while it's a really nice GM section, uh, the magic swords section, um, while it details out 10 examples, and they don't have to be swords, there's a little table that you can even roll on to decide, what is it, a light, medium, or heavy weapon? But they are more skewed to the weapon concept. I would have liked, some non-weapon examples like armor, consumables, or like treasure/trinkets.
Mm.
Um, sure, some of those things, the examples here could be applied to those, but I would have liked what Mouse Ritter would have designed for non-weapon based magic items.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to
And
have.
but I will state I'm aware that there are supplementary adventure sites that do have these examples, but this is the core book, and if someone didn't have those things, they wouldn't be aware of that.
You also try to judge a core book by the core book.
Yes.
Says
So,
I, the man who says it's
so,
fixed at a supplement, so it's fine.
so, one of the special things about the supplements is like it will always like introduce some new creatures, a new condition or two, and some items and spells. And so that could be one. And there is a example adventure site in this book that could have been where it could have been slotted in. What are these special magic items for this example adventure site? Could have slotted in there as an example. But yeah.
Very true. Uh, I have two criticisms for Mausritter. I know I talked about settlements being good for like the money system before, but building your own settlement, unless that's the main focus of a campaign, or you are getting very deep into a hex crawl and you have moved far away from any friendly mouse settlements, the actual value of building a settlement is not really expanded on. It just tells you how much it costs to do it with different materials and different locations, as well as like the cost for hiring people. It seems to be lacking any like explanation. It's like, oh yeah, like what do you do when you have like, oh, you can carve these size rooms and these tunnels, and it takes this long and costs this much through wood versus dirt. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, great. What can I do with a settlement? You can build a settlement.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mausritter.
Yeah, like this is definitely a for you to expand or for a supplement to expand on. And there's a little bit of I can guess okay, once I build a settlement, I can or at least start building a safe location. I can start bringing in friendly mice and convert it into a settlement. But yeah, like, am I paying these mice to stay here, or are they just showing up? Does the GM/referee like start rolling for if the mice appear and just become friendly NPCs that you don't have to pay? There's that. Sure, there's an upkeep feature for your constructions, but um, yeah. So definitely something they could have expanded on, but totally understandable why they didn't.
Yeah, I guess. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I think there also might be a lack of, like, cost of services in general. Like,
Mm,
sometimes in
yeah.
games like this, it'll be like, oh, here's how much staying at an inn costs. Here's how much going to the blacksmith costs to commission, like, a new weapon. Here's how much, a church costs to cure you of curses and the like. And this Mouse Ritter doesn't have any of those, so, like, you don't even get a scale for, like, pay a mouse to come live in your settlement. As it stands, you might as well just build bedrooms for your warband and a few of those hireable NPCs that you can have, park them in there, fortify it with a second warband, and then just use it as a horde. Which, I mean, is a valid use of a settlement as any, I suppose. Fortresses to guard your gold. Fort Knox exists, for fuck's sake, but it seems like it's better as a retirement point or as a campaign goal than as a mechanic in the game as written without any supplements.
Hmm. And like, I'll state you could utilize in the GM section, there is a mouse settlement table generation thing for what are the inhabitants, the notable features, industry, events, and settlement size and government, and the name and the inns and like. But that's only going to get you so far. Still doesn't give you, like you said, services and all that stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't tell
So
you, and these are things you should technically determine about your own settlement for the most part.
like, yeah, how I see it is it's more of like, hey, you're all in it together. Like, this is where you're all from. We don't need to worry about how much you need to spend to eat or, get a warm bed. Where you are all focused on surviving once you leave this place. So I can understand the omission of those rules because that's not what that part of the game is. But then, yes, the settlement building part kind of questions opens up that question.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
it does, but it also I mean, like, I guess you could carve out your own section of your home settlement for yourself, like pay someone to be like, hey, build me a set of rooms and like have this small palace inside your home settlement.
yeah,
But like the whole thing about like, oh well, you don't have to pay for food to get out, kind of this might be, you know what, this might be a me being tied with Mausritter's Descendant Crown for favorite thing, where I look at crowns and I'm like, I actually prefer that crowns did this, but the lack of pressure to make sure that you profit from a venture. I mean, obviously you have to pay your hirelings, repair your gear, and buy new equipment if you ruined yours, but and you know you want to level up. The idea that I won't be able to pay for an inn if I don't haul something out, I can't just cut and run, might be another thing for like Mouser being a bit more merciful than average for Mark of the Odd games.
that's fair enough. I would say um, it's less about that, but there's a faction system in Mausritter where, based on your, Hexflower region, there are a couple factions that are constantly working towards their goals. And every relevant turn that a faction could potentially um, attempt their goals, you roll for it and you just mark some dots. And in those cases, maybe the pressure is being ready or trying to slow down the more antagonistic factions like the rat bandits who are trying to capture a fortress or the like. So the fact that you weren't profitable, doesn't matter that you're kicked out of an inn, but it means you can't hire that war band to go stop those rat bandits.
No, and that's true, but I mean, you'd have to be bringing home a lot of pips and not. Or yeah, you'd have to bring home a lot of pips anyways to
Mm.
like do that. No, you're right. That does serve as a pressure. Yeah.
But yeah, I can see the want for having more rules or support for what happens in our settlement. Like we're from here and we're trying to, make sure it doesn't collapse or anything. But yeah, we don't have much else to go on.
Do you have any other criticisms?
No, no. I'm pretty happy with how Mouse Ritter is beyond those 2 points.
Oh, cool, because I sure do. I don't like the way that armor works in Mausritter, and I don't mean the damage reducing armor. That's one of the things I like.
Ah,
There are
yes,
two
yes.
armors in Mausritter, light and heavy. One takes up a body and paw slot, that would be your light armor, and then the other one takes up 2 body slots, that would be your heavy. However, both only reduce the incoming damage by 1.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of this. Yes, this is one of those others. I can see why, but I don't like it.
Yeah. It's meant to
uh,
distinguish armor types between one or two-handed weapons, and if you want to dual wield, you need either heavy armor or no armor. But
hmm,
armor only granting one armor kind of, heavy armor doing that kind of takes away the whole point of having a heavy armor, high damage dealer person up front.
yeah, basically, yeah, like people that are in heavy armor uh, have more things they can do with their hands, i.e., dual wielding or
Torches.
like torch and something else, or just being able to do stuff without dropping things. Or yes, being lightly armored and focused on defense with one hand with the shield, and then having something else in the other hand, but also having something at the ready in your body slot because if something's in your body slot, you can quickly switch it into your paw slot as a free action. So maybe quickly is connected to that concept of light armor. But yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, I could think of a few things about that I would change about it. The light armor is basically, hypothetically, it's like, some like Gambison type armor and a button shield as a single item, which is why it takes up body and paw. But, you could have the shield be a second thing so that someone could have light armor and dual wield, or, armor, a shield, and a weapon for extra tankiness of 2 armor, and then have heavy armor be, 2 body slots. Because, you're right, that does take away from something, and then it's like, well, then I might as well just, have this one thing on hand that I do well, like, a ranged weapon or a big two-handed weapon with your heavy armor.
And that's something that should be noted. Like if you want to wield a bow, you're going to need your quiver in your body slot. So that means ranged mice don't have any armor. They can't. It'd be too difficult to do so.
Yep.
So it like clearly defines if you're ranged, you just can't wear armor. So obviously you're going to stay in the back where you hopefully won't get shot at or hit. And then differentiating between the 2 armors. I know this is another common house rule within the Mausritter community of like at least making heavy armor reduce damage by 2, or separating the shield into its own single slot item. So much so that the Foundry Mausritter system actually has a shield item as its own single entry.
Yeah, and so, if you could just have a shield separate from an armor, then you could have a mouse with, a shield and sword and keeping their body slots free for other things. I mean, there are a lot of more interesting combinations that you could do if you, or, a really heavy armored mouse with heavy armor for 2 armor and a shield and a sword just up front fucking tanking like a mouse, like a rat.
But then also, keeping the armor reduction low does lend itself to faster resolving combat.
No, it does.
So, like, in this case, you always know if you find something with armor, a 1 is just not going to cut it.
I mean, I guess. That's true. No, that's true, except I think the armor on enemies can actually go up to 3, if I remember correctly.
I'd have to recheck that. Armor 1, armor 1, armor 1, armor 1, a snake, armor 2.
Okay.
That's the only example.
Yeah,
of armor 2.
But yeah, so there are armor 2 enemies, but players just can't do that.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things where I am a little I kind of find that a bit disappointing. A bigger differentiation than what slots it takes up, I think, would be important. But no, those are my criticisms for Mausritter. We can move on to standouts if we would like.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of the armor thing. I remember that you reminded me last time.
Yep. Every time we record a Mausritter episode, I say, I wish the armor were different.
Yeah. I really like the layout of the book, and it works well as a physical book reference too, because the inside book cover reference information. So when you open the book, the inside cover spread is gear and prices, items, weapons and the light sources, anything that you would need to pay for. Some quick mouse names and some bric-a-brac that you can roll on the table. And on the very back inside cover is a rules reference and this one less so needed. It's definitely the rules reference, but a season weather generator. So it's usable. The book itself is usable at the table, but it's usable at the table no matter what because of how clearly laid out the book itself is, and not rules dense. So I really appreciate that, and I do like. It's definitely common on some OSR books where they expect you to be opening it during play, and you can just flip immediately to the first page. It makes it definitely for those that aren't used to the concept, open the book, see the fancy cover image, Say, oh, that's nice. And then just boom. Oh, what's all this stuff? And then they get to the next page. It's like, oh, okay, tables of contents. What was the page before? But yeah.
I knew you'd talk about the I actually also like the idea that the inventory being right up front is actually something I really like.
Hmm.
In general, the rules layout for Mausritter is very good and very well structured, and I think this might just be an Into the Odd thing because I've seen similarly enjoyable rules layouts for other Mark of the Odd games. Crowns has it, of course, because it is a descendant of Mausritter. Screams has it. I can't remember if Into the Odd has it. It's been too long since I looked at that book, and it's not even up to date, so who knows?
Hmm. But no, really good. What about you?
Um, so immediately, the damage reducing armor and not rolling to hit are two things that bundled together I really like. No roll to hit is a favorite feature of mine ever since I got to experiment with it, and I was like, oh, this is way faster, this is way better. No one wastes their time on an action fucking just missing and being like, I did nothing. If you hit an enemy with an attack and it's ineffective, you learn the enemy has armor. You learn that the enemy might be resistant to or be able to ignore certain kinds of damage. Like, if you always do damage when you hit, not doing damage teaches you something. Not, swinging with your fucking fire greatsword 6 times at an enemy and missing every time and then just being like, we still don't know if this guy is immune to fire damage or not. And then,
But then,
yeah.
I'll go ahead.
Damage reducing armor then comes in, and it does kind of slow things down, but it also happens to make a lot more sense. I've said it before, people have been like, I have an AC of 20, why the hell am I taking, 14 damage from getting hit? Because AC is what you beat to hit, it doesn't reduce incoming damage at all. Once you're hit, the hit's effective.
Hmm.
Which is,
And damage reducing armor is only slows you down if you have to make 3 other rolls beforehand anyway.
yep.
Roll to hit, then roll damage, and then reduce the damage. This one, the roll to hit is your damage. So, you're only rolling to hit above their armor score. So, yeah. And in default Mausritter, just get above 1 most of the time,
Yep.
and you're okay.
But yeah, that's my biggest immediate standout.
Yeah, no, love that. Like that is the one thing that I like. I love about Mark of the Odd Games, and feel very sad whenever I play other games that don't use it.
Keep putting not
Um,
auto hit in my games and being like, why did I do this? Oh yeah, to mimic a different mechanic.
yeah, like you have to think a different way when using auto hit damage, rolled auto hit damage.
Yeah.
Um, For me, I'll mention the example of play. I love an example of play. It definitely helps people that aren't used to tabletop games in general, and also maybe particular system and play styles. So I appreciate when there's an example of play. And also with this example of play, it is at the end of the player part of the book. So it's like, okay, I've got all these rules, and now an example of play that, you know, uh, in a way is a summary of some of those rules, or at least the main ones. So that's always nice. And it gives you an example of play of just communication and like just rolling saves. Then it gives you an example play of combat, and then it gives you an example play of magic. So there's 3 different examples in there. So that's nice too.
Indeed, yes, and the magic one is very helpful because magic might make you do a double or triple take your first time through.
Yeah. What about you?
On my end, I would have to say the simple weapon classes. Weapons are broken up into 3 classes: light, heavy, and medium. Magic items have a special effect, but they aren't tied to a particular class of weapon. So it's a good system for ease of play running. If you want to give someone a magical weapon of, it gives all of your I think it's the toy soldier sword, and it gives all of your
Mm,
allies, 1 armor and a warband, and you can be like, yeah, and you know what else? This is a heavy weapon. You have a toy soldier's pike.
exactly. Uh, the weapon class or categories. Really like that concept for the fact that we are not caring about is an axe different from a sword. This is not that type of game, unless it is a magic item, or is this a great axe? Then it is different from a one-handed sword. It's now a heavy weapon, not a light or a medium weapon. Yeah, I really like that. For me, the creature stat blocks. I really like how Mausritter does their Into the Odd stat blocks. Um, Same like any other Into the Odd game, really. Um, really easy to reference and shows you the number bit in a little highlighted box section, and then gives you a want or wants. So it gives you a nice quick way of how would I potentially, you know, role play them. But then to make each of these stat blocks even more usable, it gives you a d6 table that varies depending on the creature. For the cats stat block, the d6 table are cat lords. So these are like unique named NPCs. Cat lords for people. Cats are the dragon in Mausritter, basically. But maybe the d6 table isn't unique NPCs, but it's like a trait. So for the centipede, these are different types of centipede. So a giant centipede. So now it has a different stats. Or this is a swimming centipede, so it can actually go underwater. Or this centipede does more damage. This one's a flying centipede. So and
Allowing
I
them
just
to
saw
fly
that.
is too much.
Yeah, I just saw that, and that just creeped me out. Um, and then like crows, it's their different spells. So I really like that. It's very small. It's the d6 table, but it makes that very simple Into the Odd stat block so much more usable, and makes you go, oh, okay. I know I can come up with six things my own when I'm making my own creatures. I think that's a really nice thing.
Yeah, no, all of those stat blocks are really great in Mausritter. I love them quite a bit.
Mm.
They There's like one thing, and the only reason I like am like, oh, I prefer this. Once again, Mausritter stat blocks are great. It's just that I hate having to track three separate stats for an entity, which is why I slightly prefer tracking three separate stats for an entity in a different way.
Well, in general, as a mouse, you are almost always going to be just always chipping away at their hit protection, and then you're basically always just using weapons and the like. So you're just chipping away at their strength. There's
No,
going to be
that's
smaller use cases of you chipping away at their dex or will.
exactly, which kind of begs the question as to why they need to have them. Like, this is not a Mausritter thing. This is a Crowns thing where I saw it in Crowns and I was like, oh, that's fucking genius. And then
Hmm.
Crowns uses it in a way I don't like. So, which is why a Mausritter is tied with Crowns, because Crowns has some really good ideas that I disagree with the execution of. And Mausritter can't be blamed for not coming up with an idea that was, used in a game inspired by Mausritter. That's
Hmm.
what the second edition is for.
I'll state, like, in some cases, you might not be fighting, so there is the opposed save situation. So
Oh,
I
that's
guess
true.
that's one way why you'd want to differentiate their will between their strength. But yes, I can understand that.
So
Um, Go ahead.
I was gonna say, shall we move on to? Do you have any more standouts, or should we go on to discussing free talk?
I'll just mention I love that they provide a starting region
Hmm.
with a list of locations in that region, and then also a starting adventure site, as
Yeah,
well as generation tools for both of those things as well.
I forgot about that. Yeah, no, that is a really good feature.
Yeah. So you can play a game straight away from this core book. You don't need anything else.
Yes, yes, you can.
No, I'm good. I'm good to move on.
All right. So for me, the immediate things I would take are I really like the inventory system. I really like auto hit. I like the different scales and how you can hire them with a will save.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like maybe the settlement building in terms of the literal physical, like, oh, here's what it costs to build based on these things is pretty useful. But I feel like I would have to build up mechanics around the settlement to kind of flesh that out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then the way that magic works. Those are like the 5 things I would steal if I were to make a fantasy game based on Mausritter. I have to
Yeah.
emphasize fantasy. I wouldn't use magic
uh,
in my sci-fi games. I don't mix science and fantasy.
well, I can see just a cause for using the same mechanics for tech, especially weird tech. I like weird tech for sci-fi, so I guess that's why I'd put that magic system with tech as well.
No, you're not
Um,
wrong.
no, yes, definitely the into the odd dice, auto dice, the attributes and the like, the magic system, love that, and definitely the stat blocks, but definitely the card-based inventory system. The reframing of it, it's still slots. If you can't find a way of doing, the card thing, you can still do slots. Just be aware, some items will cost 2 slots or 4 slots. And because you're doing slots, I guess you could go in between and do 3 slots as well. But the card based inventory, love that, and how conditions are also cards and the like, and grit. Um, I've said this before, but I really can see grit being used not just for conditions, but um, I can see if you want to add a little bit more that Crowns has, like feats and the like, that are these abilities that might have usage dots that you can use, per rest or whatever, if you want to do it like that. And you can slot them in your grit slot or a new grit slot or a feat slot. Or if you don't want to have magic as, tomes or rock slabs, maybe these are magical spirits that you've able to trap in your mind, and so they fill up an item slot. But you're going to put it in your grit slot, if possible. So yeah, definitely, definitely love the idea of just messing around with the inventory. And I've seen some supplements that go quite crazy, where you can mutate, and that takes up 8 inventory slots. And so your whole bag and your body slots are, all gone by this 8 slot mutation, but then gives you these, features type of thing. So literally, your inventory is your person in that case.
What an
So
interesting idea.
yeah, some interesting things I've seen some of the community do.
Your inventory is your character, you say. How interesting. Tell me more.
Yes, how interesting indeed. um, but no, I use Mausritter, and I don't play in the Mouse fiction. I love Mausritter's core engine. That I use it for any other more OSR or just deadly kind of gritty game that follows the same kind of play structure. I love Mausritter and use it for many other things. Like there's a Frostpunk-ish inspired game that instead of going out to get treasure for XP, you go out to get heat and food that you bring back to your settlement. And that's for XP. I've just reflavored it and not had to change really anything. I really enjoy Mausritter.
It's a great game. We
Mm.
should hack it sometime in the future.
Yes, maybe we should. Do you have any other thoughts? Any closing thoughts?
In terms of Mausritter, not especially. Mostly just that, the overall, Mausritter is a smooth, simple, fun game that, you could easily strip off the paint because mechanically it's not that convoluted. And go ahead and, put on a new coat of paint for whatever you need and still have it more or less be the same game, which is good. That makes it a robust game. If all you need to quote unquote hack a game is to, strip off a coat of paint and slap on a new one, you've got yourself a solid core system. And considering that Mausritter actually makes hacks and edits to Into the Odd, and still winds up being very, like, coat of painty, is very, I feel like it speaks to the quality of the game itself.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot you can do with just flavor. And Mausritter does give some more some mechanical changes and adaptations. But yeah, flavor can really make a game. And if the flavor is compatible with the system that you're using, uh, uh, I would love to see more interpretations. And there are definitely plenty out there.
All right. Well, I mean, if that's all that we have to say,
Yeah.
Mausritter, it's pay what you want. It's Into the Odd style game with beautiful touches. It has good mouse fiction to it. You could probably run it for kids. It's not super complicated. And since it is literally pay what you want, so you can get it for free, that's a valid option. Go get it. Go download Mausritter. Link in the description.
Yes, go get it. Otherwise, I will find you and give it to you.
He'll buy another book copy and hand deliver it.
Yes. Oh, if you can, definitely get the physical copy. It's really nice and very cute too. Has a nice little cutout. But yes.
So yeah, I would like to thank you all for joining us today as we looked at Mausritter. Join us next time for more indie tabletop discussion and design. I've been Oscar C. Tango, and joining me has been Sungone.
You can find me at Sungone_ on Twitter and Sungone on any other places since we're escaping Twitter. Sun on Start Playing and Sungone on itch.io.
And you can find me at Stranded TTRPG on Twitter and Hive. You can find me as Stranded Publishing on startplaying.games. And you can find me as Oscar C. Tango. Oh, wait, no, hold on. I got those two reversed. You can find me as Oscar C. Tango on startplaying.games. You can find me as Stranded Publishing on itch.io. And you can find all of those links in the description.